Welcome everybody to the February 23rd City of Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting. Appreciate everybody being here. We will start our meeting with the minutes from our January meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is an opportunity if you're here on a item that is not on tonight's agenda. This is your chance to speak to the commission if you have anything to say. All right, seeing none, we'll move on to announcements. Catherine?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to relay to you that I had sent all of you some material on legislation that's before both the House and the Senate for the state of Tennessee. Just they're informational pieces just for you to look at, to know what's happening in regards to state land use and state planning situations, and that some of those pieces of legislation may have a profound effect on the city of Franklin were they to be approved.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. If you look at the items in front of you, we've got three that I want to revise, or the applicant would like to revise. 11, 16, and 17 will be on deferral till next month's meeting. So we'll add that in our initial consent discussions. Is there any others that we need to pull from the agenda? Ms. Peterson?
Number 12.
Item number 12, okay. Any others? All right, then we will vote on the initial consent, and that will include 7 through 9, 11, 13 through 15, 16 and 17, and 19. Is there a motion?
Move for approval as amended.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, Roger, I'm going to turn it over to you for item 10 that I'm recusing myself from.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 10 for secondary consent. We have a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Roger. Let's move to item number 12, which is Resolution 2012-13, a resolution approving a regulating plan for Section 2, Revision 1 of the Through the Green PUD subdivision located along Columbia Avenue and Shadow Green Drive by the City of Franklin.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recusing myself from voting on this item.
Okay, thank you, Greg. All right, is there anyone, I guess staff, if
Yes,
we can start
Mr.
with
Chairman,
that?
this is the townhouse portion of the Through the Green project. It is a regulating plan that just goes to the Plan Commission. The applicant is asking for two modifications of standards. One is to reduce the number of parking spaces required, and the other is to allow on-street parking to count toward their parking count. Staff has looked at the information that they've provided to us and feel that we could approve this and that there would not be a detrimental impact.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience other than the applicant that wants to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Jack Luddington with Goodall Homes, and I'm here to present this application to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded discussion. Ms. Peterson?
I wanted to ask about the modification of standards that put the, I guess, the parking ratio at 2.78. I don't disagree with letting some of the on-street parking count. That seems good. But I did have a concern. These are 3-bedroom, and they are townhomes. And it seemed to me that our regulation, which says 2 spaces for the first bedroom and then 0.5 for each additional bedroom, probably is an accurate, a good requirement in the sense that if you have 3 bedrooms, it's very possible that in addition, if it's a couple with children there, that that I think the two spaces for one bedroom would be for the couple themselves. But I think if you have two other bedrooms or three, it's very likely that you could have a child that also is a driver there. Whereas if you just had a two-bedroom by itself, it's entirely possible it could be a couple with, small children or children that are not driving age. And in fact, as it was brought up to me tonight, it could be 3 adults there. And so that is the place where I had a concern of cutting back on the parking there.
I guess I share the same concern. There is a upscale apartment complex. It sits over behind Walker Chevrolet. Starts with a C. I'm sorry, it escapes me. They have one of the worst parking situations I've ever seen in my entire life. And I don't know, and I can't remember, if there was because I think I was on the board of Marion Alderman when that came through. I don't know if there was a modification of state there or not, but I'll tell you, if it was, I would hate to see that, because people who live there now and pay really good money to live there, I mean, they have folks who routinely, I'm told, park in handicap because it's so bad. I'm talking just folks that live there, not visitors, but it's so bad there for parking that, folks are parking down the hill fighting over it. So I guess what I'm going to ask you, staff, is do you feel comfortable that this would not, you feel comfortable with this? Because I was kind of with Ann on the 3 bedrooms. I'm kind of like, nowadays with folks having multiple cars.
Staff is recommending approval based on the information that we were given regarding other like developments throughout the metro area. We can't say that there would never be a parking problem, nor can we say that there would be, and that every single unit would have 3 drivers. So it is really difficult we are recommending approval based on the information submitted to us by the applicant.
And it's just that problem is a daily problem. It isn't every now and again weekend problem, which is why it kind of stayed with me.
Well, another point about that is, I believe, in sometime after that particular development was built, we did increase the number of parking places required, because we did not always have the two for the first bedroom and a half for each of the others.
Will this stop, according to the applicant, and your dealings with the applicant, is this a deal breaker for this part, or is this something that, can it not be worked out? Could it not be increased, or is it as such?
And that would be a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Would you like to ask the applicant that?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Well, to answer your question specific to that is that there's not a heck of a lot of green space on this plan, and we could put parking places in exchange for green space, but that would just be paving over areas where we'd like to have available for people to walk and enjoy the greenery. One thing I would like to mention to you is that we've done a pretty exhaustive study on coming up with some good data on parking ratios in communities, and I'll share with some of the ratios in communities that we've done. We've done about 4 or 5 in the metropolitan area. In Davidson County, if we took the same number of units, which is 64, based on their ratio, we would have, I believe, 160 parking spaces. Spring Hill, that number would be 160. Hendersonville, it would be 128. Mount Juliet, 128. And in Williamson County, 128. That compares to the 178 that were being provided on the site. We also examined some existing communities and got their ratios on their approved plans and evaluated their sites. The Spence Lane Townhomes in Nashville, their ratio varies from 2.3 to 2.6 parking spaces. Hamilton Crossing in Nashville is about 2.67 spaces. The Wakefield subdivision in Spring Hill is 2.3 spaces per unit. Concord Place, which is off of Nolensville Road at Concord, is 2.5 spaces per unit, and Burkett Place is 2.4 spaces per unit. We have found our target goal, when we ever look for a community, is around 2 to 2.5 units per parking, or spaces per unit. We have a community in Lebanon that we are providing 2.0, and that's worked out fine for us. We have another one that in Hendersonville that we're at 1.28, and that's providing, adequate parking. But we've never-
1.28 for, excuse me for asking, how many bedrooms for 1.28?
2 and 3 bedroom units. And typically what we find, again, a 3-bedroom unit, very well could be 3 bedrooms occupied by, individuals, but we have typically found our demographics are young professionals, single or widowed individuals. So we don't really find occupants in all 3 bedrooms in most of our units. Most of the units are used as 2-bedroom units, but you can't list them or advertise them or multi-list them as a 3-bedroom unit if it's not a 2. So most people that want the 3 are going to be looking at a multi-list for a 3, and it's just a marketing reason why you would never list a unit as a 2-bedroom unit. But we have found that ratios as low as 2.0 work, but we typically try to get an extra space, so a lot of communities we will use 2.5, but right now we are at 2.78. And what that works out is at 3.0, you'd be at 192 spaces. At 2.78, we're at 178, which is 14 spaces less than 3.0.
Well, there are other places that I know about in Franklin where they are very, very, very strict about, having to have some kind of sticker to even be able to park there because of the difficulty not having enough parking places. And I think that's the reason that we went to what we have now as our requirement, because we found here that there was many times a problem in not having enough spaces, and so that's the reason we went for what we did. But the other thing is, there's really not any other place they can park. I mean, here, there's no, like on-street parking on the street or something like that, where if there happened to be a spillover, that there would be any place for them to park there, which makes it kind of difficult. And in Metro, they do have more transit options than we do here. And I've seen things in other communities, where there are not as many people with vehicles, but I think here in Franklin, there are a lot of vehicle owners. And that is our rule for a reason. I mean, I don't think it was just, popped out, and I think it was in response to having, I guess, rental, but these, I guess, would be townhomes where people would own them.
Yeah, they'll be for sale units.
But still, because we had the problem where we had not required enough parking spaces for the people that live there.
Jimmy?
I was just going to ask, are they 2-car garages?
It's 1-car garage.
1-car garage. And then is there how much concrete's off the curb outside the garage?
They vary. There's some parking spaces that are just the 5-foot and some are the 20. I'm not sure of the ratio. It's probably a third that are the 20 and 2/3 that are the 5s.
So if it's the 20, was that part of your count for the parking numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it economically impact you if you were to allow all of them to have a 10-foot or 20-foot of concrete?
It's the configuration of the site that, because there's angles involved, some of the spaces would not be quite at the 20, and your ordinance states it either has to be the 5 or the 20, not the in-between dimension. It's an awkward site as far as the angles go. It's a difficult site to configure.
But you do also have some parking places that are not next to the buildings themselves, right?
That's
If
correct.
you look on there, you'll see that. there look like there's some spaces there. I do appreciate your comment about wanting green space, but I think honestly, if I were living there, I would want a parking place that I could get to every day. You know, I think that would be at least as important as the green space.
Well, so where does a visitor park if there's 5 foot and someone's already occupying the garage? Where does that visitor park?
There is visitor parking provided throughout the site, interspersed throughout the site, and that would be their parking space.
And what's that ratio? Is it, how many are available to, compared to how many units you have? Quite a few, isn't it?
Oh, there are quite a few.
It's included in this.
But wait, we're thinking, if you're talking about a one-car garage and the 20 feet behind it, that's only 2. And they're supposed to have 3, because these are all 3-bedroom units. And so there's supposed to be 3 parking places for every one of them. So in reality, there'll be at most 2 connected to the apartment? I mean, to the townhome?
Well, 2.7,
No, but I'm-
each unit is a one-car garage.
Right. Then they have the ones that have the 20, is it 20? The ones that have the 20 have another space behind that, right?
Yes.
But
yes.
none of them have actually 3 spaces contiguous to,
No.
none of them have 3 spaces
I just think it's
contiguous.
it's in the architectural design of the unit itself, and that's what we're sort of missing in the package. The rear and maybe a site plan, a typical site plan that would show how much you're allowing. Are you allowing an extra car to pull in behind that garage, or are they going to have to park in that alley?
5 footers.
It varies. Some can park in that 20-foot spot, and if it's a 5-foot one, I guess parking would be provided in the overflow parking. That would be
In the
adjacent to
overflow.
the unit, but not in that parking spot per se.
So the net unit's 3-bedroom with just 1 parking place.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Is
Makes it
it,
even worse.
is it safe to say in the alley where you're showing 90-degree parking toward the, I don't know what side that is, but is it safe to say that you could add 14 if you took away some of that green space in the back? I know it's kind of asking you to design on the fly here, but
Yeah,
I mean, it
we
looks
would
like
have to
there's
take a
some-
look at it. They'd be, you would probably take one space, I'm looking at one in particular near units 26 to 28, and it would probably be adding one to the left and adding one to the right, and then going over to maybe where 22 is and adding a couple there, and, that type of a thing is how
Right.
you would go about doing it.
I like your plan, I just would like to know that if you, and answer that question, design the units where you have enough room for a car to pull in behind that garage?
The answer to that question is no. Not for all of them. Some of them, we've provided that, and some it's just, you can't, because of the angles. We had ended up with driveways that may have been 17 feet long, but that was not quite long enough to make the 20, so we had to actually configure it to make them 5, because your ordinance does not want a driveway to be in between that 5 and 20, because then somebody might park awkwardly, and it would be more hazardous than having the parking space.
Roger?
Do you have a sense of how many of them have the 20-foot parking behind the garage as opposed to how many have 5 feet? What, just roughly a percentage, or?
There's tick marks shown with each one, and it doesn't look like very many have 20.
And if you're talking about extra parking places that are not, are they saying that there's some parking on the street in the fronts? I don't count 60 parking places that are out there. You know, the little spaces that you see for parking places, I don't count 60 there. I guess what I'd like to do is to amend to disapprove the modification of the 2.78 and let them work with the staff to put that in, put them
Okay.
in.
All right. So you would,
I could go with allowing 30% of the on-street parking to count for the required, is that modification of standards two?
Yes.
I'd leave that.
Yes,
But modification of standard one to amend to disapprove that and let them work with the staff to put those extra 14 places in.
okay. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. In discussion? All right, then we're voting on the amendment to the main motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We're back to the main motion. Any other discussion on the main motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, let's move on to item number 18.
Mr.
That-
Chairman, this is a text amendment, adding to the charter permitted uses, under temporary uses, a temporary use or temporary structure for buildings that are being renovated through the city, and the city would allow that for a specific period of time as part of a site plan. We are asking that you approve this. This has been through our conceptual workshops, and I believe that it would be a really big boon to business to allow them to continue to operate. This does not include operations such as sales from a trailer window or anything like that. This is just to continue the administrative operations.
Okay. All right, anyone in the audience wants to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.